Captain Lisa Martinez stood at the large window of the space station looking out at the stars. Her hands were behind her back, and she took slow, deep breaths. Today was the most important day in human history. After years of trying, humans were finally going to meet with the Zephyrian Empire for real talks. The space station was called Harmony Point, and it was huge. Ships from many different planets came here to trade and talk. Today it was full of reporters and diplomats from all over the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when humans met the mighty Zephyrians. Jake Thompson walked up beside her. He was her best friend and her tactical advisor. He had been with her through many dangerous missions. "You ready for this, Lisa?" he asked quietly. Lisa nodded, but did not turn away from the window. As ready as anyone can be when they are about to meet warriors who could crush us with their bare hands, Jake tried to smile. Well, at least we studied their culture for months. We know what to expect. Dr. Amy Collins joined them at the window. She was their expert on alien life forms. She had spent her whole career studying different species across the galaxy. "I have been reading about them again," she said. "The Zephyrians value strength above everything else. Physical strength, mental strength, and the strength to keep fighting even when things look hopeless." Lisa finally turned away from the window. "And they think we are weak because we prefer talking to fighting." "That is exactly what they think," Amy said. "To them, diplomacy is what weak species do when they cannot fight. They believe that only the strong deserve respect." The three humans walked through the corridors of the space station. Other beings moved around them. There were blue-skinned Centaurians with their 4 arms. There were the tall, thin Vorthans with their large eyes. There were even some of the rock-like granite people, who rarely left their home worlds. All of them stopped and stared at the humans as they passed. Word had spread quickly that humanity was meeting with the Zephyrians today. Most species in the galaxy stayed far away from the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians were known for conquering planets and making the people there serve them. "Look at how they stare at us," Jake whispered. "They think we are crazy." "Maybe we are," Lisa replied. "But Earth needs allies. We cannot stay isolated forever. There are too many threats out there." They reached the main conference room. It was a huge space with a high ceiling. The walls were made of clear material, so everyone could see the stars outside. In the center was a large table with chairs around it. On one side of the table sat the human delegation. There were only 5 of them, including Lisa, Jake, and Amy. The other 2 were communication experts who could speak many different languages. On the other side of the table sat the Zephyrian delegation. Lisa had to work hard not to stare at them. They were much bigger than any human. The smallest one was still taller than the biggest human she had ever seen. War Commander Thakmore was their leader. He was nearly 8 feet tall and very wide. His skin was thick and gray with bone ridges running across his forehead and down his arms. Scars covered his body, each one a mark of honor in Zephyrian culture. His eyes were small and dark, and they seemed to look right through the humans. Next to him sat Battle Sister Velnara. She was slightly smaller than Thakmore, but still much larger than any human. Her skin was darker gray, and she had more bone ridges than the male. She wore a ceremonial sash across her chest, with symbols that showed her victories in battle. The other 3 Zephyrians were younger, but still huge and frightening. They all wore simple clothes that showed their muscled bodies. Lisa could see that they were built for fighting. Their hands were large enough to crush a human skull, and their legs looked like they could run for miles without getting tired. War Commander Thakmore spoke first. His voice was deep and loud, like thunder. "So these are the humans we have heard about. Small creatures from a small world who think they can speak with the Zephyrian Empire as equals." Lisa stood up slowly. She had practiced this moment many times. "War Commander Thakmore, we come here with respect for your people and your traditions. We hope to find common ground between our species." Thakmore made a sound that might have been laughter. "Common ground? What could we possibly have in common with creatures so weak that they hide behind machines and words instead of proving their worth in battle? Battle Sister Velnara leaned forward. Our scouts have studied your species, humans. You have no natural weapons, no thick skin to protect you, no great strength or speed. How did such weak beings ever leave their homeworld? Amy stepped forward. We use our minds to overcome our physical limitations. We build tools and ships and work together to achieve what we cannot do alone. Tools and cooperation, Velnara said with disgust. The weapons of the weak. In the galaxy, only the strong survive. The weak serve the strong or die. Jake felt his anger rising, but Lisa put a hand on his arm to calm him. She knew this was exactly what the Zephyrians expected. They wanted the humans to get angry and say something stupid. We understand that strength is important to your people, Lisa said carefully. But there are many kinds of strength. The strength to endure, the strength to adapt, the strength to keep trying when others give up. Thakmor stood up to his full height. The humans had to tilt their heads back to look at his face. Pretty words, small human. But words are just air moving through the throat. True strength is proven in battle. We did not come here to fight, Lisa said. We came to discuss trade agreements and mutual defense treaties that would benefit both our peoples. Defense treaties? Velnara laughed. What could humans possibly defend us from? And what could we gain from trading with a species that has nothing we want? Lisa had expected this reaction. We may not be physically strong, but we have developed technologies that could be useful to your empire. Medical techniques, communication systems, and manufacturing processes that could improve life for your people. Thakmor sat back down, but his eyes never left Lisa's face. Interesting. But first you must prove that you are worthy to make such offers. In Zephyrian culture, all important business begins with a demonstration of worth. Lisa felt her heart start beating faster. She had read about this tradition, but she had hoped it would not happen. What kind of demonstration? Combat, Thakmor said simply. One of your delegation will fight one of ours. Hand to hand, no weapons, no tricks. The winner's people will have the dominant position in any negotiations that follow. The room became very quiet. Lisa could hear her own breathing and the quiet hum of the space station's air system. Around the conference room, representatives from other species had gathered to watch. Word was spreading that something important was about to happen. Jake started to step forward, but Lisa blocked his way with her arm. I will accept the challenge, she said in a clear voice. Thakmor looked surprised for a moment, then began to laugh. The sound was loud and harsh. You? The smallest one among you? This will be over quickly. Velnara shook her head. War Commander, surely this is a joke. She is barely half the size of our smallest warrior. Size is not everything, Lisa said, though she knew how foolish she sounded. I accept your challenge, War Commander. When and where do we fight? Thakmor stood up again, and this time all the other Zephyrians stood with him. We fight now in the arena level of this station. All who wish may watch. When you are defeated, your species will remember that the Zephyrian Empire tried to show mercy by ending this quickly. As the delegations moved toward the arena, Lisa felt Jake grab her arm. This is suicide, Lisa. Let me fight instead. No, she said quietly. I am the captain. This is my responsibility. Amy walked on her other side. Their bone ridges are not just for show. They make their skulls much thicker than ours, and their muscle density is 3 times greater than a human's. One solid hit could kill you. Lisa nodded. I know. But if we back down now, humanity will never get another chance like this. Sometimes you have to risk everything to gain anything. They entered the arena level, and Lisa saw that it was already filling with spectators. Beings from dozens of different species had come to watch the tiny human face the mighty Zephyrian warrior. Most of them looked like they were watching someone walk to their execution. Lisa looked around the arena, and then at War Commander Thakmor, who was removing his ceremonial clothing to reveal muscles that looked like they were carved from stone. She took a deep breath and began to remove her own jacket. In 1 hour, everything would change. But first, she had to survive the next few minutes. The arena was round and made of smooth metal. It was about 50 feet across with walls that went up 20 feet high. Above the walls, rows of seats filled with beings from across the galaxy. Lisa had never seen so many different species in one place. They all came to watch what most believed would be a very short fight. Lisa stood in one corner of the arena wearing simple exercise clothes. Her heart was beating fast, but she tried to keep her breathing steady. Across from her, War Commander Thakmor stretched his massive arms. Even without his ceremonial clothes, he looked like a mountain of muscle and bone. Jake and Amy sat in the front row with the other humans. Jake's hands were closed into fists. His face was pale with worry. Amy held a medical scanner, ready to help Lisa when the fight was over. Both of them knew this could end very badly. The Zephyrian delegation sat on the opposite side. Battle Sister Velnara watched with cold eyes. She had seen many fights like this before. In her mind, the outcome was already decided. The other Zephyrians talked quietly among themselves, making jokes about how quickly their commander would finish this. A neutral referee stepped into the center of the arena. He was a tall, thin being from the Arbitrator Guild. These creatures ran most of the important fights and contests in the galaxy. The rules are simple, he announced in a voice that carried throughout the arena. Hand-to-hand combat only, no weapons, no artificial enhancements, no outside help. The fight ends when one fighter yields or cannot continue. Lisa looked up at Thakmor. Standing this close, she could see just how huge he really was. His shoulders were wider than she was tall. His arms were as thick as her legs. The bone ridges on his skin looked like natural armor. Thakmor looked down at her and shook his head. Little human, you still have time to choose someone else to fight in your place. I do not wish to kill you by accident. I appreciate your concern, Lisa said. But I am here to fight. The referee raised his hand. Fighters ready? Both Lisa and Thakmor nodded. Begin, did not rush forward like Lisa expected. Instead, he walked toward her slowly, his arms hanging loose at his sides. He moved like someone who had all the time in the world. Lisa understood why. In his mind, this was not a real fight. It was just a demonstration to show everyone how weak humans were. Lisa began to move in a circle around him. She kept her distance and watched how he moved. His steps were heavy but balanced. His eyes followed her movement, but he did not seem worried about anything she might do. The crowd grew restless. They had come to see a fight, not a slow dance. Some of the spectators began to make noise, wanting more action. Thakmor seemed to hear them. He suddenly stepped forward and swung his right arm in a wide arc. Lisa ducked under the swing and moved to his left side. She threw a quick punch at his ribs, but it felt like hitting a stone wall. Thakmor did not even seem to notice. He turned and swung again, this time with his left arm. Lisa jumped backward and the huge fist passed inches from her face. She could feel the wind from his punch. If it had connected, it would have taken her head off. Lisa continued to move around him, staying just out of reach. She threw quick punches and kicks whenever she saw an opening, but nothing seemed to hurt him. His thick skin and dense muscles absorbed every hit she made. The Zephyrian delegation began to laugh. Battle Sister Velnara turned to the alien sitting next to her. Look at her run around like a frightened animal. This is what humans call fighting? In the human section, Jake gripped the rail in front of him so hard his knuckles turned white. Come on, Lisa, he whispered. You have to find a way. Amy was studying Thakmor through her scanner. His bone density is incredible, she said quietly, and look at his muscle structure. He is built like a living tank. For 5 minutes, Lisa continued her dancing strategy. She avoided his powerful swings and landed dozens of small hits, but showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, he seemed to be getting bored. Is this how humans fight? He called out loud enough for everyone to hear. Running and hiding like prey animals? Lisa knew he was trying to make her angry. Angry fighters made mistakes, but she also knew that her current strategy was not working. She could dance around him all day and never hurt him enough to win. She decided to take a bigger risk. When Thackamore swung his next punch. Instead of backing away, she stepped forward. She ducked under his arm and got close to his body. From there, she threw several hard punches at his stomach and chest. Thackamore was surprised by this change. For a moment, he had to step back to create distance, but then he smiled. If the small human wanted to fight up close, he would show her why that was a mistake. He grabbed for her with both hands, trying to catch her in a crushing bear hug. Lisa saw it coming and rolled between his legs, ending up behind him. She jumped up and threw her elbow at the back of his neck, aiming for what she hoped was a weak spot. The blow landed solidly, and for the first time, Thackamore staggered forward a step. The crowd made a noise of surprise. No one had expected the human to actually hurt the Zephyrian warrior. Thackamore touched the back of his neck and looked at his fingers. There was a small amount of blood. He turned to face Lisa, and his expression had changed. The boredom was gone. Now he looked interested. "So you can bite, little human, good. This might be more fun than I thought." The fight became faster and more intense. Thackamore stopped treating Lisa like a weak opponent and began to attack with more speed and purpose. His punches came quicker, and he used his legs to try to kick her when she got close. Lisa had to use every bit of her training to avoid his attacks. She had studied many different fighting styles during her military career. She used techniques from boxing, martial arts, and combat training. But even with all her skill, she was barely staying ahead of his crushing power. The crowd was fully engaged now. Beings who had come expecting a quick execution were watching a real fight. Lisa was clearly outmatched, but she was not giving up. Every time Thackamore thought he had her cornered, she found a way to escape. But Lisa was getting tired. Dancing around a giant opponent for 10 minutes was exhausting. Her breathing was getting heavy and her movements were slowing down. Thackamore, on the other hand, seemed like he could fight for hours. Battle Sister Velnara leaned forward in her seat. She could see that the human was weakening. "Finish her, War Commander. Stop playing with your food." Thackamore heard her words and nodded. He had enjoyed this little game, but it was time to end it. The small human had shown more spirit than he expected, but spirit alone could not win against superior strength. He began to press his attack more aggressively. Instead of single punches, he threw combinations. Instead of giving Lisa space to recover, he kept moving forward, forcing her to keep backing up. Lisa found herself against the arena wall with nowhere to run. Thackamore stood in front of her, blocking her escape. His massive form cast a shadow over her. "You fought well, little human," he said. "Better than I expected. But this ends now." Lisa tried to duck to one side, but she was too tired to move fast enough. Thackamore had been waiting for this moment. As she moved, he planted his feet and threw the hardest punch he could manage. His huge fist caught Lisa on the left side of her jaw. The sound of the impact echoed through the arena like a gunshot. Lisa's feet left the ground and she flew backward through the air. She hit the arena wall hard and then crumpled to the floor. The arena became completely silent. Lisa lay motionless. On the metal floor, her arms and legs twisted at odd angles. Blood ran from her mouth and nose. Her eyes were closed and she was not moving. Amy jumped over the rail and ran to her friend. She knelt beside Lisa and checked for a pulse. It was there but weak. Lisa was breathing but barely. Amy began working with her medical equipment, trying to stabilize her captain's condition. Jake sat in stunned silence. He had known this might happen, but seeing it was different from imagining it. His best friend lay broken on the arena floor, and there was nothing he could do to help her. Thackamore stood over Lisa's unconscious form. He did not look happy about his victory. The small human had fought with more courage than many Zephyrian warriors he had faced. But courage was not enough when facing superior strength. The referee stepped forward. "War Commander Thackamore is the winner. The human fighter is unable to continue." The crowd began to break up, thinking the show was over. The Zephyrian delegation prepared to leave, satisfied that they had proven their point about human weakness. But Amy was not giving up on her friend. She worked frantically with her medical equipment, checking Lisa's injuries and trying to wake her up. The blow had broken Lisa's jaw and given her a severe concussion, but she was alive. 30 minutes later, something unexpected happened. Lisa's eyes opened. She tried to sit up but immediately fell back down as pain shot through her head. Amy helped her into a sitting position against the arena wall. Amy said, "You have serious injuries. We need to get you to a medical facility right away." Lisa looked around the arena with confused eyes. Most of the crowd had left, but some spectators remained, curious about the injured human. The Zephyrian delegation was still there, preparing to begin their victory negotiations. "Did I win?" Lisa asked through her broken jaw. The words were hard to understand. Amy's eyes filled with tears. "No, Lisa. You lost. But you fought like a champion." Lisa struggled to stand up. Amy tried to faint. Lisa sat on a small chair at the edge of the arena, watching the recording of her fight on Amy's tablet. Her jaw throbbed with every heartbeat, and her head felt like someone was hitting it with a hammer. But her eyes stayed focused on the screen. She watched the fight 3 times, studying every second. Around the arena, more beings were arriving to watch the second fight. Word had spread throughout Harmony Point that a human was crazy enough to continue fighting after being knocked unconscious. Ships that had been preparing to leave stayed docked. Restaurants and shops closed as their owners came to watch. This was something that had never happened before. In the viewing area, aliens from dozens of different worlds talked excitedly among themselves. A group of Centaurian traders had started a betting pool, though the odds were still heavily against Lisa. Most beings thought she was either very brave or completely insane. Near the back of the viewing area, an old Zephyrian warrior named Korthan sat alone. He had been a famous fighter in his younger days, but now he spent his time studying combat techniques from different species. He had watched the first fight very carefully, and something about it bothered him. Korthan had brought his own recording device and was reviewing the footage, frame by frame. He watched the moment when Thakmor landed his winning blow, but he was more interested in what happened before that moment. He rewound the recording and watched it again. "Interesting," he muttered to himself. "Very interesting." Down on the arena floor, Battle Sister Velnara walked over to where Thakmor was stretching. "War Commander, why are you allowing this foolishness? The human is clearly defeated. End this charade and let us begin the real negotiations." Thakmor continued his stretching routine. "She has the right to continue under our laws, and she has earned that right through her performance in the first fight." "Her performance?" Velnara laughed. "She ran around like a scared animal and then got knocked out with one punch. What is honorable about that?" "Did you watch the same fight I did?" Thakmor asked. "That small human lasted 10 minutes against me. She landed several good hits and even drew blood. How many of our own young warriors can say the same?" Velnara frowned. She had not thought about it that way. "But she is so weak. One blow ended the fight." "One blow ends most fights," Thakmor replied. "The question is not whether you can avoid being hit. The question is what you do when you are hit." Across the arena, Jake and Amy tried one more time to convince Lisa to stop fighting. Jake knelt beside her chair and spoke quietly. "Lisa, you have already done more than anyone expected. You proved that humans can fight. Isn't that enough?" Lisa paused the recording and looked at her friend. "Jake, do you remember why we came here?" "Earth needs allies. We need friends in this galaxy. If I quit now, we go home empty-handed. Humanity stays alone and weak. But if you die here, humanity loses one of its best leaders," Amy said. "You are more valuable alive than dead." "Am I?" Lisa asked. "What good am I if I cannot do my job when it matters most?" She touched her broken jaw gently. "This is my job, Amy. This is what I signed up for when I became captain." Amy knelt down next to Jake. "Then at least tell us what you are planning. We can see that you have an idea." Lisa smiled, which hurt her face. "I have been watching this, recording very carefully. Not just watching myself, but watching him." She pointed at Thakmor on the screen. "And I noticed something important." "What?" Jake asked. "Watch this part," Lisa said, rewinding the recording. "This is the moment when he knocked me out. But look at what happens right before that. Jake and Amy watched the screen carefully. They saw Lisa backed against the wall with nowhere to run. They saw Thakmor plant his feet and throw his massive punch. "I do not see anything unusual," Amy said. "Look at his technique," Lisa said. For most of the fight, his movements were controlled and precise. He fought like a trained warrior. But in this moment, he abandoned his training. He got frustrated and threw a wild punch using only brute strength. Jake looked at the screen again. "You are right. His form was completely wrong for that punch." "Exactly," Lisa said. "And look at the Zephyrian delegation when it happened." She rewound the recording to show their faces at the moment of the knockout punch. Amy studied the faces on the screen. Battle Sister Velnara does not look happy. In fact, she looks disappointed. "She looks disgusted," Lisa corrected. "And not with me. With him. A true Zephyrian warrior is supposed to win through skill and honor, not through blind rage." Chakuri began to understand. "So you think if you can make him lose control again?" "I think I can beat him using his own culture's values against him," Lisa finished. "But I need to do it the right way. I cannot just make him angry. I have to prove that I understand Zephyrian warrior philosophy better than he does." Amy looked worried. "Lisa, that is a very dangerous plan. If you are wrong about their culture, or if you cannot execute it perfectly, he will kill you this time." Lisa stood up slowly, using the chair for support. "Amy, I have studied Zephyrian culture for 2 years. I know their history, their legends, their code of honor. I know what they respect and what they despise." She walked over to a weapons display case that was built into the arena wall. It contained examples of fighting weapons from many different cultures. Lisa studied the Zephyrian section carefully. Their greatest hero was a warrior named Tekvar the Disciplined, Lisa said, still looking at the weapons. He was not the strongest Zephyrian who ever lived, but he was the most skilled. He won hundreds of fights against stronger opponents by using perfect technique and unbreakable discipline. Jake joined her at the display case, and Thakmor abandoned his discipline to beat you. "Which means he won the fight but lost honor in the eyes of his own people," Lisa said. "At least that is what I am betting on." She looked back at the viewing area where the Zephyrian delegation sat. Battle Sister Velnara was talking to the other Zephyrians, and they all looked serious. Whatever they were discussing, it was not celebration of their commander's victory. Up in the viewing area, old Korthan had finished studying the recording. He stood up and walked down to the arena floor. Several beings tried to stop him, saying the area was restricted, but he showed them a medallion that identified him as a former grand champion. They let him pass. Korthan walked directly to where Battle Sister Velnara sat with the other Zephyrians. "Battle Sister, may I speak with you privately?" Velnara looked surprised to see the famous old warrior. "Of course, Grand Champion. What troubles you?" They walked to a quiet corner where the other Zephyrians could not hear them. Korthan showed Velnara his recording device. "I have been studying the first fight very carefully. Tell me, what did you think of our war commander's performance?" Velnara hesitated. "He won the fight decisively." "That is not what I asked," Korthan said. "What did you think of his technique?" Velnara was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "His technique was perfect for most of the fight, but at the end, he fought like an untrained youth." Korthan finished. "He let frustration control him instead of controlling himself." "Yes," Velnara admitted, "but he still won." "Did he?" Korthan asked. "Look around this arena, Battle Sister. Look at how the other species are watching us. Do you think they are impressed with our strength or disgusted by our lack of honor?" Velnara looked around the arena. She could see aliens from many different worlds talking excitedly. Some were pointing at the Zephyrian delegation and shaking their heads. "What are you saying, Grand Champion?" "I am saying that War Commander Thakmor may have won the fight, but he has damaged our reputation," Korthan replied. "And now this human wants to continue. If she fights with honor and he does not, what will that say about the Zephyrian Empire?" Meanwhile, down on the arena floor, Lisa finished her 15 minutes of preparation. She walked to the center of the arena where Thakmor was waiting. The war commander looked at her with genuine concern. "Small human, you look terrible. Are you sure you wish to continue?" "What request?" "I want to fight you using traditional Zephyrian combat forms," Lisa said. "No more running and dodging. No more hit-and-run tactics. I want to face you warrior to warrior, using the techniques that your people have developed over thousands of years." Thakmor looked shocked. "You want to fight me using our own fighting style? That is suicide. Our techniques are designed for beings with our strength and bone structure." "Perhaps," Lisa said, "but it is the honorable way to fight. And if I am going to lose, I want to lose as a warrior, not as a frightened animal running from a predator." The arena became very quiet. Even the most distant spectators could hear Lisa's words. She was challenging not just Thakmor's strength, but his honor, and the honor of his entire species. Thakmor studied Lisa's face carefully. Her jaw was swollen and discolored. Blood still dripped from her nose, but her eyes were clear and determined. She was not speaking from desperation or madness. She was speaking from genuine understanding of what it meant to be a warrior. "Very well," Thakmor said finally. "We will fight as warriors fight. But I warn you one final time. I will not hold back because you are injured or because you are smaller than me." "I would be insulted if you did," Lisa replied. As they took their positions for the second fight, something had changed in the arena. The crowd was ninine. The second fight began very differently from the first. Lisa did not move away from Thakmor or try to keep her distance. Instead, she walked straight toward him with steady steps. Her stance was perfect according to Zephyrian fighting tradition. Her feet were placed correctly, her arms held at the proper angles, and her eyes focused directly on her opponent. Thakmor had never seen a non-Zephyrian use their traditional fighting forms before. The sight of this small, injured human adopting the stance of his ancestors caught him completely off guard. For a moment, he just stood there and stared at her. In the viewing area, the Zephyrian delegation leaned forward in their seats. They recognized the fighting stance that Lisa was using. It was called the position of honor, and it was taught to every young Zephyrian warrior as the foundation of proper combat technique. Battle Sister Velnara turned to the warrior sitting next to her. "How does she know that stance? We have never taught our fighting methods to outsiders." "She must have studied our historical combat recordings," the other Zephyrian replied. "But knowing the stance and using it effectively are two very different things." Old Korthan watched from his seat with growing excitement. "She is not just copying our techniques," he muttered to himself. "She understands the philosophy behind them." Down in the arena, Thakmor finally recovered from his surprise and took his own fighting stance, but something was different about his posture. In the first fight, his movements had been casual and confident. Now he seemed uncertain, almost cautious. Lisa moved first. She stepped forward and threw a punch using the classical Zephyrian striking technique called the Hammer of Justice. It was a straight, powerful blow aimed at the center of Thakmor's chest. The punch connected solidly, and while it did not hurt the massive warrior, it forced him to take a step backward. The crowd made a sound of surprise. In the first fight, Lisa's punches had bounced off Thakmor like raindrops hitting a mountain, but this punch had actually moved him. Thakmor looked down at his chest where Lisa's fist had struck. There was no damage, but he could feel the difference in her technique. This punch had been thrown with proper form and full commitment. It carried the weight of her entire body behind it. "Better," he said with grudging respect. "Much better." Lisa did not reply. She was completely focused on the fight. She moved forward again and threw a combination of punches that every Zephyrian warrior learned in their first year of training. Left hand to the body, right hand to the head, left elbow strike to the ribs. Thakmor blocked the first two strikes, but was surprised by the elbow. It caught him in the side and actually stung. He had to use more effort to defend himself than he had expected. For the next few minutes, Lisa pressed her attack using only traditional Zephyrian techniques. She threw the Rising Storm combination, followed by the Crushing Wave sequence, and finished with the Lightning Strike series. Each technique was executed with textbook precision. The Zephyrian delegation watched in growing amazement. Lisa was not just copying their moves. She was performing them correctly with the right timing and proper form. Some of their own young warriors could not execute these techniques as well as the small human was doing. "This is impossible," one of the younger Zephyrians whispered. "She fights like she has been training with our masters since childhood." Battle Sister Velnara said nothing, but her expression had changed completely. The contempt and amusement were gone, replaced by something that might have been respect. Thakmor, meanwhile, was having trouble adjusting to this new style of fighting. In the first round, he had been fighting a quick, evasive opponent who used hit-and-run tactics. Now he was facing someone who fought like a true Zephyrian warrior, meeting his strength head-on with proper technique and unwavering courage. The problem was that Thakmor had gotten used to relying on his superior size and strength. When facing weaker opponents, he often abandoned perfect technique in favor of overwhelming power. It was a bad habit that had developed over years of easy victories. Lisa, on the other hand, had no choice but to use perfect technique. She could not rely on superior strength or natural advantages. Every move had to be precise, every strike had to be perfectly timed, and every defense had to be flawless. As the fight continued, something remarkable began to happen. Lisa was not winning, but she was not losing either. She absorbed Thakmor's powerful strikes using proper Zephyrian defensive techniques, redirecting his force instead of trying to stop it directly. When she attacked, her strikes were so well placed and perfectly timed that they had more effect than her raw strength should have allowed. The crowd began to murmur with excitement. This was not the one-sided beating they had expected to see. This was a real fight between two skilled warriors, and the outcome was no longer certain. Jake and Amy watched from the front row with their hearts pounding. Jake grabbed Amy's arm. "She is actually doing it. She is matching him technique for technique." Amy nodded, but she was still worried about Lisa's injuries. "Look at her face, Jake. She is in terrible pain, but she is not slowing down." It was true. Lisa's broken jaw was causing her constant agony, and her head injury made it hard to focus. But she pushed through the pain with pure determination. Every time Thakmor landed a blow, she absorbed it and kept fighting. Every time she felt weakness, trying to take over, she forced herself to continue. Thakmor was beginning to feel something he had not experienced in years: doubt. This small human was fighting him to a standstill using his own people's techniques. She was not stronger than him, but her technique was so perfect that it made up for her physical disadvantages. As the minutes passed, Thakmor began to feel frustrated. He threw harder punches, trying to end the fight quickly. But Lisa's defensive techniques were flawless. She deflected his strikes, absorbed the ones she could not avoid, and kept counterattacking with precise, well-timed blows. Up in the viewing area, old Corthan was nodding with approval. "Beautiful technique," he said quietly. "She understands that strength without discipline is just violence." The turning point came when Thakmor attempted a technique called the Mountain Crusher. It was a devastating overhead strike that was designed to end fights quickly. But to execute it properly, the warrior had to maintain perfect balance and timing. Thakmor was so eager to finish the fight that he rushed the technique. His form was sloppy, his balance was off, and his timing was wrong. Lisa saw the mistake immediately. As Thakmor's huge fist came down toward her head, Lisa stepped to the side and used his own momentum against him. She grabbed his arm and used a classical Zephyrian throwing technique called the Falling Mountain. Thakmor's own power and weight carried him forward, and he crashed face first into the arena floor. The crowd erupted in shocked excitement. The mighty war commander was on the ground and the small human was standing over him. But Lisa did not celebrate or gloat. Instead, she stepped back and waited for Thakmor to get up, showing the respect that Zephyrian tradition demanded between honorable opponents. Thakmor pushed himself to his feet, his face red with embarrassment and anger. He had been thrown by an opponent half his size using his own people's techniques. The humiliation was almost unbearable. "It was not luck," Lisa replied calmly. "You rushed the Mountain Crusher and left yourself open. A first-year student would not make that mistake." Her words stung because they were true. Thakmor had abandoned proper technique in his eagerness to win, and Lisa had punished him for it. Battle Sister Velnara watched this exchange with growing concern. She could see that Thakmor was losing his temper, and that was dangerous. A warrior who fought in anger made mistakes, and mistakes could be fatal. Thakmor's frustration was obvious to everyone in the arena. His movements became more aggressive, but less controlled. He threw powerful combinations, but his technique suffered. He was fighting like a brawler instead of a trained warrior. Lisa, meanwhile, remained calm and focused. She continued to use perfect Zephyrian technique, meeting each of his attacks with the appropriate defense and counterattack. The contrast between their fighting styles was becoming more obvious with each exchange. "Look at her discipline," Korthan said to the being sitting next to him. "She is injured and exhausted, but her technique never wavers. That is the mark of a true warrior." The fight had been going on for almost 10 minutes now, and both fighters were showing signs of fatigue. But Lisa's condition was much worse than Thakmor's. Her broken jaw was swelling badly, and she had to spit blood several times. Her head injury was making her dizzy, and her vision was starting to blur. Thakmor could see that Lisa was weakening, and it only made him more frustrated. How was this tiny, injured human still standing after everything he had thrown at her? The answer was simple but profound. Lisa was fighting with perfect technique, absolute determination, and complete understanding of Zephyrian warrior philosophy. She was showing more honor and discipline than Thakmor himself was displaying. The final moment of the fight came when Thakmor, overcome with frustration and rage, abandoned all pretense of proper technique. He raised both fists above his head and prepared to bring them down in a crushing blow that would have killed Lisa instantly. It was exactly the same loss of control that had ended the first fight, but this time, Lisa was ready for it. The arena was filled with complete silence for several long seconds after the referee announced Lisa's victory. Nobody could believe what they had just witnessed. A human, barely half the size of her opponent and severely injured, had defeated one of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Lisa knelt in the center of the arena, breathing heavily and trying not to fall over completely. Her broken jaw throbbed with every heartbeat, and her vision kept going in and out of focus. But she had won. Somehow, against all odds, she had actually won. Jake and Amy rushed onto the arena floor, but they stopped a few feet away from Lisa. They could see that she was barely conscious, but they also knew that this moment was bigger than just their friend's victory. This was a moment that would change everything for humanity. War Commander Thakmor sat against the arena wall, holding his head in his massive hands. He was not seriously injured, but his pride was completely shattered. He had been defeated by a tiny human using his own people's fighting techniques. The shame was almost unbearable. In the viewing area, the Zephyrian delegation sat in stunned silence. None of them had spoken since the fight ended. They were all trying to process what had just happened and what it meant for their empire's relationship with humanity. Battle Sister Velnara was the first to move. She stood up slowly and walked down to the arena floor. The other Zephyrians watched her with confusion and concern. What was she planning to do? Velnara walked past the human delegation without looking at them. She went straight to where Thakmor sat against the wall and knelt beside him. "War Commander," she said quietly. "Are you injured?" Thakmor looked up at her with eyes full of shame. "Only my pride, Battle Sister. But that may be the worst injury of all." Velnara helped him stand up. "Come. We must do what honor demands." "What do you mean?" Thakmor asked. "You know what I mean," Velnara replied. The human fought, with perfect technique and unbreakable discipline. She defeated you fairly using our own methods. There is only one response that our culture allows. Thakmor understood, but the thought made him feel sick. The ceremony that Velnara was talking about had not been performed in over 100 years. It was reserved for only the most exceptional displays of warrior skill. Meanwhile, beings throughout the arena were talking excitedly among themselves. Representatives from dozens of different species were trying to understand what they had just seen. Many of them had never heard of humans before today, but now they would never forget them. A group of Centaurian traders were already making plans to contact Earth about possible business deals. If humans could produce warriors like Lisa Martinez, they might have other valuable qualities as well. Near the back of the viewing area, several military observers from different worlds were taking notes furiously. They had come to watch what they thought would be a quick execution, but instead they had witnessed a masterclass in combat technique and warrior philosophy. Old Corthon made his way down to the arena floor, moving slowly but with great purpose. Other beings tried to stop him, saying the area was restricted, but he showed his Grand Champion medallion again and they let him pass. He walked directly to where Lisa was kneeling and stopped in front of her. Lisa looked up at him with difficulty, her swollen eyes barely able to focus on his face. "Young warrior," Corthon said in a voice that carried throughout the arena. "I have been fighting for over 60 years. I have seen thousands of battles and trained hundreds of warriors. What you did here today was the finest display of combat technique I have ever witnessed." Lisa tried to speak, but her broken jaw made it almost impossible. "Thank you," she managed to whisper. "No," Corthon replied. "Thank you. You have reminded all of us what it truly means to be a warrior. Strength without discipline is just brutality. Power without honor is just violence. You showed us the difference." He turned to address the entire arena. "Let all beings here today remember what they have seen. This small human has demonstrated the warrior virtues that we Zephyrians claim to value above all else. She fought with perfect technique, absolute courage, and unbreakable discipline. She is a true warrior in every sense of the word." The crowd began to cheer again, but Corthon raised his hand for silence. "But more than that, she has shown mercy to her defeated opponent and respect for our traditions. These are the marks of not just a warrior, but a leader." Battle Sister Velnara had been listening to Corthon's words while helping Thakmor to his feet. Now she walked over to where Lisa was kneeling. She reached behind her back and began to untie something from her belt. What she removed was a ceremonial banner made of deep red fabric with golden symbols embroidered on it. It was her personal battle standard, earned through years of victories, and marked with symbols representing her greatest achievements. For a Zephyrian warrior, their battle banner was more precious than life itself. The arena became completely quiet again as everyone realized what Velnara was about to do. Even the other Zephyrians in the delegation looked shocked. This ceremony had become the stuff of legend because it happened so rarely. Velnara knelt in front of Lisa and held out the banner with both hands. "Captain Lisa Martinez of Earth," she said in a voice that everyone in the arena could hear. "You have proven yourself worthy of the highest honor that our people can bestow. You have shown that true strength comes not from the body, but from the spirit." Lisa stared at the banner in confusion. She understood that this was something important, but her head injury made it hard to think clearly. Amy stepped forward and whispered in Lisa's ear. "Lisa, she is offering you her battle banner. In Zephyrian culture, this means she recognizes you as a superior warrior. It is the highest honor they can give." Lisa looked back at Velnara, then at the banner in her hands. With great effort, she reached out and accepted it. The fabric was surprisingly heavy, and she could feel the weight of centuries of tradition in the gesture. "I accept this honor," Lisa said, her voice barely audible through her broken jaw. "Not just for myself, but for all humanity." Velnara bowed her head deeply. War Commander Thakmor, still supported by 2 other Zephyrians, watched this ceremony with complex emotions. Part of him was still humiliated by his defeat, but another part of him was beginning to feel something, like pride. He had not been defeated by trickery or luck. He had been beaten by a superior warrior, who understood the deepest principles of combat better than he did. He walked slowly over to where Lisa knelt holding the banner. The entire arena watched as the massive warrior approached the tiny human, who had defeated him. Thakmor stopped in front of Lisa, and then, to everyone's amazement, he knelt down as well. "Captain Martinez," he said in a voice full of respect, "I was wrong about your people. I thought humans were weak because you were small and preferred words to weapons. But today, You have shown me that true strength has nothing to do with size or natural weapons." He paused, struggling with words that were difficult for a proud warrior to say. "You fought with more honor and discipline than I did. You deserved to win, and I deserve to lose. I ask your forgiveness for my disrespect, and I pledge that the Zephyrian Empire will treat humanity as equals and allies." Lisa looked at Thakmor with surprise and growing respect. It took tremendous courage for a warrior of his status to admit defeat so publicly and ask for forgiveness. "There is nothing to forgive, War Commander. You gave me the fight of my life, and you did it with honor. Any warrior would be proud to call you an opponent." Thakmor smiled for the first time since the fight began. "And any empire would be proud to call humanity an ally." He stood up and addressed the entire arena. "Let it be known throughout the galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire recognizes humanity as a warrior species deserving of full respect and partnership. Captain Martinez has earned this recognition through her courage, skill, and honor." The crowd erupted in cheers that seemed to shake the entire space station. Beings from dozens of worlds applauded and shouted their approval. This was more than just the end of a fight. This was the beginning of a new chapter in galactic politics. Jake helped Lisa to her feet, supporting her as she swayed from exhaustion and injury. She still held the battle banner in her hands, and the red fabric seemed to glow under the arena lights. Amy began treating Lisa's injuries right there on the arena floor, but Lisa waved her away gently. "Not yet," she whispered. "Let me stand for a few more minutes. People need to see this." And she was right. Throughout the arena, beings were taking pictures and recording videos of the small human holding the Zephyrian battle banner. These images would spread across the galaxy within hours, carrying the news that humanity had earned its place among the warrior cultures of space. Representatives from other species were already approaching the human delegation, wanting to discuss trade agreements and military alliances. The Centaurians offered exclusive trading rights. The Vorthans wanted to discuss technology exchanges. Even the mysterious Granite people sent a representative to express their interest in meeting with Earth's leaders. But the most important moment came when Velnara approached Lisa one final time. "Captain Martinez," she said quietly, "this banner carries great responsibility. It means that you speak not just for humanity, but for the warrior spirit that exists in all honorable beings. Do you understand what this means?"